William Shakespeare. The name alone conjures up millions of thoughts. An English playwright and poet who lived between the 16th and 17th centuries, he is considered the author who most represents England, whose works are a fundamental part of Western literature, translated into all the major languages of the world and staged more often than any other. Among the best-known tragedies, Romeo and Juliet undoubtedly stands out, the most famous love story in the world, so much so that it symbolizes the archetype of perfect love, thwarted by the evils of society. The story stars two young Italians forced to die in order to reconcile their families and to love each other in freedom. Among the numerous adaptations of this tragedy, it is interesting to analyze the musical Romeo e Giulietta ama e cambia il mondo, directed by Giuliano Peparini, with music by Gerard Presgovich and lyrics by Vincenzo Incenso, the Italian version of the French musical Romeo et Juliette de la haine à l'amour. This musical is very faithful to Shakespeare's tragedy, as it respects its plot and main characteristics. Among the small differences from the book, there is certainly the greater introspection of the characters in the musical, for example, in the case of the curious figure of Tybalt's cat, which is completely absent in the original work. In fact, it is a contrivance created specifically for the musical to accentuate Tybalt's constant presence in Juliet's life in the form of a hidden and jealous protector, always alert, like the eyes of a cat. Emphasis is also placed on the psychology of Juliet, who is resolute and determined, as well as of Romeo, who is much more dreamy and impulsive, but also of Count Capulet, whose most hidden fragilities are revealed. The Italian translation is also quite faithful to Shakespeare's work, taking up terms and lines literally, as in the case of Mercutius' famous monologue or the prologue. One difference between the book and the musical is the marriage of Romeo and Juliet, which is not present in the original work, where the event is implied and therefore not included in the text. The kiss between Romeo and Mercutio is also only present in the musical. Actually, this is a purely directorial choice, as Peparini preferred to modernize the story in a way to bring it closer to young people, introducing the themes of homosexuality and inclusion. A further difference is that in the musical, it is Benvolio, Romeo's cousin, who wants the letter of Juliet's death, who he believes is really dead. On the other hand, in the original text, it is Balthasar, Romeo's servant, who warns him of the event, also convinced that it really happened. Finally, the attempt to modernize the story has been put into practice both in the sets, which are totally digital, and in the lyrics. In fact, the songs have been strongly adapted, so much that the register used in them is decidedly simpler than in the book, a strategy purposely used to create simple and useful texts, characterized by a rather young language, again with the aim of attracting young people to the theater as much as possible. In short, although the Shakespearean style is clearly respected, in a musical the whole story is slightly more fictionalized and more played on the naivety of the protagonist and the psychological nuances of the characters. Romeo and Juliet is a story made up of feelings and reflections which allow us to understand the sociological importance of the work itself. In fact, it focuses on several extremely topical issues, which have been faithfully taken up in a musical just as in the original work. To die for love, to die. This is the leitmotif of the tragedy, which introduces the theme of love as a shield against the injustices of society, which would like all citizens to be equal, forced to love whoever is imposed on them by social schemes. Just like Juliet, who is not free to love Romeo, forced instead to marry Count Paris, a man she does not even know. The whole story is permeated by jealousy, which is also dangerous enough to lead to death. Tybalt killing Mercutio out of jealousy for his cousin, Romeo killing Paris for the same reason. The same jealousy that actually focuses precisely on the character of Tybalt, that scrutinizing eye, always on guard, ready to act at the first useful opportunity. However, the main theme of the tragic story, along with fatal love, can only be hatred and family rivalries. Two opposing families, Montagues on one side, Capulets on the other. Anger and resentment among adults spills over onto the children, who are always the first to pay the consequences of their parents' mistakes. And it is only through death that people understand what they have. That two families who have been opposites for centuries finally understand the futility of their discord in front of the crushed lives of so many young people. But as always, only a tragic event allows people to open their eyes. Among the story's secondary themes, the fatality of fate certainly stands out. A fate that is perhaps already sealed for everyone and that can be changed by a few things, or by just one: love. Love for one's partner, for one's child, for one's family and friends, for life, freedom and peace. Love in all its forms. Love that changes the world. At this point, it becomes almost unnecessary to reiterate the literary importance of Shakespeare and his Romeo and Juliet, which is so high that it has transcended the space of time and has inspired millions to love a little more, as well as countless filmmakers to make adaptations that would win the hearts of us all. The story of the two Italian lovers has also been a source of inspiration for many writers and authors. From the romantic poets Coleridge and Tennyson to the novelists Dickens and Melville, from the musician Giuseppe Verdi to the pre-Raphaelite painters. I decided to choose Romeo and Juliet, firstly because it is one of my favorite books, a story full of very deep and topical reflections. Secondly, because the musical based on it represents an important period for me, as, thanks to it, I became so passionate about the world of musical theater that I embarked on a professional career in a musical and acting academy. I saw the show in 4 different Italian cities, and each trip was one more opportunity to reconfirm my passion for the sport. However, personally, I can say that I prefer the original play to its stage adaptation, despite my connection with the latter. In fact, I think the beauty of Shakespeare's pen cannot be compared to any adaptation of it, no matter how faithful it may be. Nevertheless, I believe that this play is one of the few adaptations of Romeo and Juliet that manages to convey the true essence of the play itself. In fact, thanks to the actors' performances, the sets, the costumes, and above all the music, the play acquires such a strong emotional impact that anyone can understand the importance of love as the only weapon that can save the world, as well as the futility of hatred and resentment in the face of the transience of life. The themes are more relevant today than ever before. Therefore, from this point of view, this musical allows the audience to embark on an inner journey made of reflections that culminate in the awareness of the fundamental values of life and importance of peace and love against hatred and social evils.